Hey everybody, I wanted to share with you how my homemade glacier turned out. A couple videos about glaciers here. I'm going to post how to make your own homemade glacier. Hopefully you try this out. Don't get hung up on it. If you don't have sand and rocks at home, you can put whatever you want in there just to make it neat. You could even put some Lego people in there, like they're a animal or a person that has been frozen into a glacier, which has happened. There have even been what's called ice mummies found in glaciers that I debated showing you, but for some kids in fourth grade, it may be a little too creepy. So if you want to look that up, that's on you, not on me. Anyways, I wanted to show you how things turned out. So this is a screenshot from the video. This is my homemade glacier that I made with my daughters just by freezing some water, putting some sand in there, putting it in the freezer, and I set it out of my driveway. This is what it looked like as soon as we put it down, and then I came out 1 hour later, and this is what I saw. So I kind of this happened on accident, which thought was kind of neat. This was in a shadier area, so it was a little bit cooler. That spot on the driveway, but as the day went on, of course, things are going to shift. Earth rotating around the sun and everything. The shadows are going to change. Sunlight's going to change where it's hitting it, and our glacier warmed up and melted faster. So you can see our glacier has this runoff right here. Where there was no water before. So we can kind of see this landform forming from melting glaciers, right? So we could imagine this would be like a river or a creek. In my driveway, some of the little cracks and holes from the gravel would have filled with water, so we could pretend that those are like lakes or ponds that are forming. During the Ice Age, the last major ice age that we had over 10,000 years ago, a lot of glacial ponds and rivers formed up. We're going to be talking about that later on. So, like, for example, in Ohio, when we were covered in a glacier and it was melting away, we had a lot of those ponds and whatnot that formed because the glacier was melting. All right, so then here's a close-up view of it 1 hour later, right? And then I went out and the next hour. So this is it after it has been sitting out for 2 hours. So let me come back here. Take a look at that flow, that runoff from the melting glacier. And then 2 hours later, look how that's expanded out, right? A lot more of that ice is melted. It is now almost in full sun. So that is going to increase the temperature of that glacier and cause it to melt faster, which we know happens to glaciers when the temperature increases in the environment. Even by a little bit, they start melting pretty fast, right? Here is a close-up picture. I took two pictures here because we're starting to see some of these pieces of sediment, those glacial erratics being exposed. I think this is really neat right here. Look at that guy right there, has fallen out of the glacier and now has been deposited in that spot. You can look around the surrounding area. That rock doesn't really belong, right? So that's how we know that a glacier brought it there. And then hour 3, when I came out, honestly, I was surprised. I did not think it was going to melt this quickly. But this is what is left of our glacier, which is absolutely nothing of our glacier is left at all. It has completely melted hour 3. So we can see this really large glacial erratic. Let me come back to the pictures here that we couldn't really see before. I mean, you can kind of see where it is now that we know it's there. But it has been deposited in this area, and we can see these smaller sediments, these smaller grains being left behind as well. Okay, so this is hour 3, and this was a few moments later. You can see the water over in this picture has completely evaporated. So that happened as well when we were thinking about the history or the geology of Ohio. At one point, when the glaciers were receding and melting, our environment would have been much wetter than it is now because of all that meltwater. But eventually things have dried up. And when I say eventually, I'm talking about thousands of years. Eventually, things are drier now than it used to be when we had a giant river of ice melting not too far away. So yeah, so we have all this deposited by, and this is what I want to point out. So this is a picture that I shared with you guys from our national park video. If you didn't watch that one, I would really encourage you to go back and watch it because there's some cool stuff in there. But these are the Indiana Dunes, right? So this is in northern Indiana on the shores of Lake Michigan, and they were made by a melting glacier that, when it melted, deposited tons of sand, literal tons of sand, that glacier had picked up and moved with it, like a bulldozer does, like I mentioned in our glacier video. So what we see here is a very, very small example of the Indiana dunes. Now we have these sand dunes being left behind. And if this water did not evaporate, if it had, a nice opening for that water to pool in, like here, that's where our Great Lakes came from. So the water that's in the Great Lakes now is not from the glacier anymore. Over the many, many years, it has been replaced by rainwater and everything. But the glacier made the Great Lakes, made the sand dunes when it melted. And then here with this really big, I'm using air quotes, big glacial erratic, that's what we see here. So I mentioned this in our glacier video, that when glaciers melt, they're either going to leave massive glacier erratics, or smaller ones. Not every erratic has to be huge. So for example, when I went to the Indiana dunes with my family, I was kind of nerding out over some of the pebbles I found there, because they were pebbles of granite, which is a rock that we don't have a lot of in this area at all. I mean, there's some granite out west in the Rocky Mountains and everything, but in the Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky area, we don't have any granite. It's an igneous rock. So to find granite in Indiana on this beach means that granite pebble at some point was picked up by a glacier in Canada and brought down and deposited when that glacier melted. Pretty cool stuff. So to see it all side by side, here it is at the very beginning. Here's hour 1, hour 2, hour 3. So you can see with that increase of temperature, our glacier is going to melt pretty fast. I am trying to think of another way I can show you this. I have another glacier sitting in our freezer right now. I would like to do another presentation on that, but honestly, I'm trying to figure out a way to do that to where I'm not making a huge mess of sand and water in my house. I don't mind doing it too much in the classroom, but in my house, I don't want water and sand everywhere. So I may have to set that up somewhere like in our basement or outside. So feel free to share your comments, any questions you have. I'm reading those comments you guys are posting. Those are great. And I'll answer any questions you have on this. And again, if you choose to make your own, please share pictures. I would love to see how you make this. I used a smaller tub. You can use whatever plastic tub you are allowed to use and you have freezer space for. So the bigger the tub, the bigger the glacier you can make. But I do not want anyone getting in trouble because you're using somebody's nice Tupperware container for sand and gravel, and then or not. Or maybe you can use it and just blame it on me, and then I'll answer the emails and tell them that I'm sorry. So hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.